Hello, welcome to Direct Joy today, here lunchtime on a Tuesday. It's great to be back. It's great to see you. And today is a subject. We're going to focus on one discussion point today, one subject, which is a bit of a sobering subject, but is one that actually gets covered in the work that I do a great deal, and is actually a question that I get asked, unfortunately, way too frequently, but it is the nature of mental health work, and that is talking about suicidal ideation specifically. So suicidal ideation is when you have an idea that actually suicide is the best option. And so, yeah, if you feel that this subject is a bit heavy for you, if you feel it's not particularly relevant, that's cool, tune out. I won't be offended if this is something that you really feel that you need to tune into. If it's something that you're going through at the moment, please feel free to contact me, whether that's a journey that you're going through with a friend or family, or whether that's something you're going through silently or not with yourself. And excuse me, it is part of the work that I do, and seeing people through to the other side of that, and understanding that, exploring that, being curious about our lives and the control that we have to take our own lives, the fragility of life is, part of it. So I'm a psychologist and a psychotherapist, and I'm now in private practice. I used to previously work for the NHS and for charities. And when I thought about the name for my company, I decided that I would go for C, for Cherie, and then a semicolon, and then Joy. And the reason that C Joy, as in C Joy, which is my initial and then my surname, and C Joy to be able to see joy. So see joy, but also that semicolon is so vital. Hi to all the watchers that have pinged on. The semicolon is so vital in understanding the work that I do, and the reason for that is excuse me, frog in my throat. The reason for that is because the semicolon in English grammar suggests that it is not quite the end of the sentence. We think that there's going to be a sentence end. We think there's going to be a full stop, but there's not. It carries on. And that can be really similar with suicidal thoughts. It can be really similar. We think that it's the end, but actually it's not. And so that kind of explains some of where I'm coming from in my work, and how I help people that are supporting those that have suicidal thoughts and ideation, and also supporting those that actually are going through it and they are affected by their mental health. We see that have reported that 1 in 5 people in their lifetime in the UK have suicidal thoughts. Now, to me, that's pretty high, right? And I think that's quite interesting. I think if we kind of bring it down a level from the sobering thought of thinking about actual suicide, which actually only affects, reportedly, 1 in 15 people in the UK actually attempt to take their life. So that's the kind of stats difference, and that's what you're working with, is that actually because you're having a suicidal thought, it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to attempt to take your life. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to hurt yourself, but we don't know that at the time, do we? And if we kind of take it down to a kind of day-to-day basis, we all have at times, whether we share it or don't share it, intrusive thoughts. And that can be due to hormonal, it can be due to pressures, it can be down to our adrenal systems, it can be due to something completely unfathomable that we don't have a conscious awareness of, which is really helpful to bring to therapy. And we can just, general issues that are kind of going on that we don't see a solution to, and then suddenly, boom, you're driving the car and you think, oh, what if I drove into that tree? And it's like, whoa, where did that come from? Those kind of levels of intrusive thoughts of standing on a bridge and going, ooh, what would happen if I jumped? Those intrusive thoughts are along the lines, and Freud would call these are kind of, or it would be aligned in Freud's language to be a kind of death drive, this self-destructive drive to be the saboteur, and be, self-destructive. And it doesn't mean that we actually do it. And with suicidal thoughts, that same thing follows. It doesn't actually necessarily mean that we do it, but the process of the dominating thoughts and the dominating force actually mean that what kind of state are we in? What function is that serving? And, there's lots of things in our world that are out of control, and therefore we need a solution. And sometimes the only solution we have to whatever it may be that feels the mountain is too big to climb or the valley is too deep, that actually to get from, we have this urge as human beings to thrive, and therefore to move from that place of deep depression. Actually, we find that, that is a solution, and suddenly it becomes quite simple, is that suicide would be an option, where ordinarily it wouldn't be. Our life, we know, is not to be taken in that way, because it's precious and we want to live it, and we want to live it and be happy. But if that doesn't feel like the door that's open, sometimes that's the option that feels like the door is the only door that's open. And we get caught in that. So this kind of process of being caught in that loop, caught in that language, caught in that depression. And we find one of the questions I'm asked regularly, unfortunately, is how can I support my friends and family if you get an inkling of that kind of greyness? And it is very much a greyness. You feel a greyness when you sit with people that are struggling with this, and it isn't a selfishness. It is a place that people are in where they are really struggling with their mental health. They're struggling with certain battles in life that just keep coming and just keep coming at them, and we all know what that is like. And actually sometimes we can't always cope with it in the ways that we expect us to, and with that comes some shame as well, and we don't want to admit it. And there is no shame in that. We all have a mental health, as I've been saying over the last couple of weeks, and I'm really passionate about the fact that we all have a mental health, and it's how we look after it, it's how we manage it. What is the rhythm of looking after that, of going through the valleys, of climbing the mountains that life has to offer, especially at the moment when we're dominated by choices that we make and how we integrate back into society, what society is even like. Excuse me again. So what's it like sitting with a friend? What's it like if you try to sit with a friend who's having suicidal thoughts? Let them talk. Let them have space as much as they need. Bring them a cup of tea. Mine did that wonderful promotion a couple of years ago, a few years ago now, about, making time for tea. And I've been on a podcast, I was a guest on a podcast about tea, and that time for tea is really important. It fits with our whole kind of British culture, doesn't it, of tea. And I think it is really, really important. It's one step at a time. And sometimes the next best step is having a cup of tea, is brushing your teeth, is acknowledging that you might not get out of bed in the next couple of hours, but hopefully you'll get out by this afternoon, and you might pootle around the garden. You might step out the front door and sit on the front doorstep, or acknowledge the postman. These are small steps, and it's really important to acknowledge, excuse me, the delights of live. You get to hear me coughing with the frogs in my throat. What's it like really to take that space to sit with that person? Now, they may be very, very quiet. They may be very, very talkative. There is no rhyme or reason. We all have a different rhythm of how we deal with our mental health, how we deal with our emotional health, how we deal with certain problems. You may experience them as boring. You may experience them as going on and on and on and on and on and on and on, and you don't have a solution. Now, it's probably true that you don't have a solution to whatever their problem may be, because if there was an easy solution, they wouldn't be in this tangle, right? This is a tangle, and this is more than just a wobble. They are talking about something being so dire that they want to take their life, or they want to harm themselves. And it might not be that they actually want to. It might be that actually they are having these thoughts that's scaring them because they don't want to die and they don't want to take their own life, and they're scared. So it may be that space to talk about that fear is absolutely vital, because otherwise they're going back in on themselves, back in on themselves, and back in on themselves. And if you're the person going through it, you will find that too, is that actually the more it's in, the less it's out, and anything is better out than in. Yeah, I in my therapy, I wasn't expecting to share this bit today, but in my therapy practice, I say very much that these kind of thoughts, these intrusive thoughts, suicidal thoughts, self-harm, anything like that, anything where you're negative against yourself, is exactly like wind. It's better out than in. And as we all know, it's absolutely really, really, really impossible to hold in a burp or a fart. You just can't do it. What do you do when you've got wind? You would blow up, right? And this is very much like that. You would blow up. And we don't want people blowing up all over the place. And this is the time where, you know, we're open more to having celebrations and that can make people feel quite anxious as we're opening up to be able to do more things in society. And some people, we need to notice that, okay, do I need to go and sit in their garden with them? Excuse me, do I need to go and have a coffee with them? Do I need to go and just integrate with them a little bit more, or send them a few more messages? And helping them to find a different rhythm that may be a different script from what they're in, because that will open more opportunities. And when there's more opportunities, there's more space. When there's more space, you can breathe. And when you can breathe, it's life, literally life. And when you find yourself in these difficult mental health and emotional places, actually what we find is our breath is here. We feel it in the physical. It's here, we're panicking. And it's like, when you're panicking, you feel, you know, if someone comes up to you in the street and they're panicking about something or something has happened, it's here. Whereas actually, when we're in a place of relaxation, when we're in a place of rest, our breath goes straight here. It's here. It's in the lower belly. It's here we can breathe from. And when we can breathe from here, our shoulders go back. We're broader. We can stand. We can own what's going on. Now, someone who's feeling like this may not want to own the situation, and therefore if we can own it alongside them and be with them, that gives space and opportunity. That's no longer in the panic. It's no longer here. It's no longer here. So, and this is why we say it's really important to be with nature and go for a walk, because that naturally, unconsciously allows the breath to flow. Excuse me. It's why some people find smoking so helpful. It's why you will find some people, if they're having these experiences, may revert to smoking, because it's a really interesting physical change. It's why yoga is absolutely brilliant. I'm such an advocate for yoga, such an advocate for going out in the garden, going out, you know, even if you're picking the weeds along the pavement outside, you know, your front door, if you don't have a garden, you know, trying to get an allotment space, which hopefully is not too restrictive in your area, doing anything you can do to bring about a rhythm of life that is not the dark side. Basically, it is quite Star Wars. It's quite dark side, and rebelling against the dark side, finding the people, the places, the time, the crafts, the doodling, the hobbies, and some of this stuff will feel like way too much. I'm listing just a list to kind of throw some ideas out there, but what is it like, you know, if you gift yourself something when you're feeling like that, and if you can gift something to someone else when they're feeling like that, and it may just be one pink flower, it may just be a 10-minute walk, it may just be a cup of tea, it may just be a lovely pad of paper for them to doodle on, for them to journal with, for you to doodle on, for you to journal with. But to be able to bring in something that will offer more space is absolutely vital. And then bring in the people. So if it's an emergency situation, you may need to call emergency services. You know, if you are afraid and they're telling you that this is the intention now, emergency services need to be called. Their GP needs to be made aware. Their next of kin, their mum, dad, supportive family, flatmate, whoever it may be, needs to be aware, and they need to be aware now. And we all have a duty for that if we are here that somebody is struggling that much. And it is really important that we make that aware, you know, people are aware of that if it's an emergency, 999. If you are concerned whether it is an emergency or not, 111. And also keeping in contact with GPs, keeping in contact with their family members, and just making sure there is so much light shed on the situation and that it's talked about, but in a really gentle way, in a person-centered way. So as therapists, we have this person-centered. Carl Rogers talks about being person-centered, and there's a whole training you can do as a person-centered counsellor, which is absolutely awesome. And it talks about the fact that it's about the person. So, it's not being derogatory. It's not taking away from the fact that they have rights and you have rights. We all have rights, and we all have emotions, and we all have sensitivities around that. So it's thinking about the preciousness of the person, and always putting the person who is feeling these ways, in these negative ways, in this depression, in the central and forefront all the time, without being in the spotlight, because it's that tension, isn't it, of not being in the spotlight but also being able to offer them the best possible options, and for them to know that they are so precious. They are so precious, and we are all so precious, and life gets very, very tough at times. It has certainly been tough, and anxieties have been tough. Depression has been, really hard for a lot of people, and people are still shielding as well, and it's really important to bear in mind where we're at, where we are, and have an awareness of our mental health. But as I've said before, if this is something you are experiencing, please get in contact. Samaritans, Mind, myself, but in an emergency, the emergency services. I don't know if you're aware, but you can actually you can walk into A&E. Mental health is just like physical health. If you've got something going on and you feel that you need to see a doctor, go see a doctor. And they are great down there. They have like psychiatric liaison teams, crisis teams, and services are really, really, there's a lot on for services, but there always is. And so, but offer yourself the best opportunity for your mental health. Don't struggle alone, and don't allow anyone around you to struggle alone. Get the resources for resilience and robustness that you, as that precious individual, as a human being, deserve. So that's all for today. It's a really heavy subject, and there is more that I can say about it, obviously. But I think from a Direct Joy point of view, just bringing that into awareness, that 1 in 5 people have suicidal thoughts, and actually what happens when we give light to that, what happens when we give air to that, is we find a healing place, we find healing roots, and that's healing roots in, and that's healing roots out of it. I think that's really important, and just remember, it's better out than in. So that's all from me today, unless there's any questions on the comments. Thank you to everybody who's watched. Thank you for everyone who watches the replays. I really appreciated it. It's so great to see you, and any feedback. It's lovely to hear of people that are doing trainings in mental health. It's lovely to hear from people that I haven't heard from for ages. It's lovely to see you all. It's lovely to use social media in this way, to be honest. I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with social media. And I like the fact that this means that I don't have to be too salesy on social media. I can just show up as myself, and and share what I think is important information that I'm passionate about, and start conversations, and just bring mental health more into what we need to talk about. So thank you for sharing your lunchtime with me. I look forward to seeing you next week. Send in any questions you've got. There so far is not a plan for next week, so hopefully you will send through loads of questions and give me loads of good stuff to ponder on through the week. And I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday, and take care. Bye.